my dad, a very tired psychologist with a plethora of diagnoses. Dad, I think I have OCD. Dad, I think I'm depressed. Each time an argument ensued, and each time my dad said something along the lines of, Tori, why do you want something to be wrong with you? Ouch! My mum was much the same, particularly with physical ailments. I have a migraine, my back hurts. We're all met with, can't be as bad as mine. It's quite a British-Australian attitude. Suck it up, love, could be worse. An evolution of our tall poppy syndrome which mutates in some bizarre damage Olympics. We're all fighting to be worst off, to be the toughest, to suffer the most, and complain the least. A true blue Aussie. I have very much internalized this attitude for too long. I stopped going to therapy because I became almost mute in front of my psych, thinking that I didn't deserve any help. Because I wasn't damaged enough. I ignored the migraines and the back pain. I soldiered on and on and on. When your symptoms are dismissed by others, it becomes all too easy to dismiss them yourself until it all becomes too much. The back pain progressed. I would find myself anxious to go to bed for the night because I knew as soon as my back touched the mattress, the built-up pain would stab my spine, rippling up and down. At the behest of my partner, I decided to look into maybe doing something about it. Crumpled up in my dresser was a year-old referral to a scoliosis clinic in Brisbane to receive an EOS, a full-body X-ray to look at my spine. As you might guess, I had been putting it off. I knew already that I had scoliosis, S-shaped curvature in my spine. My grandma has it, my mum has it, and her chiro spotted it in me when I was much younger. But I thought it wasn't very serious. I'd been told that it was mild, so I get the X-ray and I go to the clinic anyway. I then had a consultation to discuss the severity of my scoliosis. The guy was very strange, but cool. He had been working in Malaysia for over a decade and he sold 15 clinics just before COVID. He was like rich and ready to retire, but decided instead to do some charitable work for a good cause of his mates. He's been treating some of the worst cases of scoliosis he's ever seen in his medical career. Immediately, he describes my case as complex. For reference, the surgical threshold the government has declared for scoliosis is a thoracic curve of 50 degrees and a lumbar curve of 40 degrees. My thoracic curve was 47 degrees and my lumbar curve was 43 degrees. Worse than this was my pelvic ubiquity. Don't know what that means. Sounds scary? You bet! Basically, it's how unleveled your hips are. Mine are uneven by 3 centimeters, which is too much. Your curves are already very bad, and you're working with an uneven base, which complicates things and puts you at a high risk of progression. I had entered this appointment hoping for a physio referral and a thumbs up. Instead, I had to stave off a panic attack, having to contemplate not being able to walk by 60. He then went on to interrogate me about my plans for my future, plans for children, and plans for my career, suggesting that I pop out my kids, then undergo spinal fusion, a surgery which may leave me wheelchair bound. Yay! I resist surgery, and he instead recommends that I ease up from my manual labour heavy job, that I be fitted for a brace to straighten me out right during Pride Month, I'll remind you, and that I attend regular scoliosis specialised exercise physio sessions. I leave the appointment. The first thing I do is call my boss, who's surprisingly empathetic. For reference, when I was injured at work prior with some mild tendinitis, she told me that my injury was an inconvenience to her. But she was surprisingly empathetic and graciously allows me to go to light duties. Then I call my dad. His understanding offers to foot the bill for the brace. Lifesaver. Only then do I cry. After, I go to the root salon and pretend as if my whole shit wasn't just rocked. The next couple of months is endless paperwork. Fighting Medicare and private health, over $200 worth of appointments every week. Pain, 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 and more pain. It's all been a lot. Which, funnily enough, I began to neglect my mental health during this period. I've always been Miss Independent, so needing to have my partner tie my shoes or open the car door for me feels kind of world-ending. I've been told by co-workers that I'm useless. I've had to move down 3 classes at uni and getting further and further away. My brace is incredibly restrictive. I was going to wear it tonight, and then I was like, oh, that's a lot of effort. I drop things all the time and it hurts to pick them back up. I can barely sit down. Most of the time I look like a turtle trying to flip itself over. I try to remind myself just how incredibly lucky I am to be in this privileged position, albeit uncomfortable position where I can focus on my physical health and work on the mental side of things. But it can be so hard to work on yourself just for yourself. So while it may be hard for me right now, if it all means that I can one day play with my grandkids with my partner, then it'll all be worth it. And when they ask me what I did in my 20s, I can show them the pics of me with this weird iron-maiden medical device. It's freaky. So please book that doctor's appointment you've been putting off. Check that weird mole, get that colonoscopy. I know it's uncomfortable, especially if you're AFAB. We constantly have to fight to be heard in healthcare, and no, it's not just hormones. Asking for help will always be hard, but your health is important. Please go.